This is about how to live at the end of life. And basically, by the end of life, I'm talking about 60 to 120, the last 60 years of your life, assuming that stem cells will give you an extra 20 years or so. The key to this is the fact that if you were not externally driven, if you were internally driven, and you drove the structuring of your life out from inside you through your wishes, dreams, and intents, if you were an in out to the world type, then you managed your life on several different time scales at the same time. And so you played to the audience of people not born until 200 years from now. You played to the audience of the people who will be born the day you die. You played to the audience of the old people around you that are the same generation that you are. You played to the younger rising generation around you. And you played to all four of those at the same time in your life. And you got different inputs to you, of different value from those four. Uh, by far, 200 people, 200 years from now, imagining what you have and can make now that would be valuable and interesting to them is the biggest intellectual challenge. It is really tough. And playing to the living, i.e., playing to people that will be born right after you die, that's not too tough, just a little bit tough. And then playing to your current era, people, your condition of life and the degree of experience, that's probably the easiest. You really know them, they really know you. And you know what will amaze them. And to amaze them, you have to be able to amaze yourself. And then paying to the younger rising generations, you just have to overcome your distaste for how barbaric, ignorant, and stupid they look, and deluded, and all the childish 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old Wall Street graduate school delusions that they pursue. Um, and so there's a cultural translation that has to go on. But that's true for each of them. I mean, the translation is many dimensions of every dimensions of life for people 200 years from now. But you should be dialoguing, imagining, inputting, outputting, producing for all four of those time scales from your, say, your mid 30s or so. If you do that, you can play off the you that you develop for each of those efforts uh, and move among them in various situations. It gives you immense power to manage yourself, to please yourself, to use situations for your purposes, to help people in situations that you otherwise couldn't help. And it gives you the ability to come at situations from such abstruse, unpredictable frames and points of view that your just daily life performance astonishes and amuses and interests people. And that people want you at their parties because if it gets dull, bring X into the room, and he or she will come up with some unbelievably outrageous cut at something that the rest of us can spend the next 3 weeks thinking about. And so, being operating your life on multiple size scales, and playing to audience on one audience on each of those size scales. So, performing and making something for that audience that will be born 200 years from now. Performing and making something for that audience that will be born the day I die. Performing and making for people like me, my generation in the world. And performing and making for these rising generations of barbaric youth. Those four time scales are there for all of us. And if we deliberately move among and play and produce for all four of them, it has a tremendous effect. I noticed Elton John, I think it was, who stopped making his pop music because he realized it wouldn't even be elevator music 100 years from now. How many songs from 100 years from now did you listen to today and like? Zero. So everything Elton John has produced, and no matter all of its popularity, is going to be utter garbage. No one will ever remember or listen to it again in the future of the world. He got scared of that, and then he thought about the audience 200 years later. He has to do some classical music because that gets listened to 200 years later. And so you saw him switch scale. I think this is about 7 years ago. He switched scale. He announced it on one of those evening night shows, Jay Leno or something. And then boom, and they played this really soppy, sappy, trickly, sweet, horrible Schubert type symphony he had made, which probably will disgust the people 200 years from now and would have disgusted the people 200 years ago. So he's got a long ways to go in terms of understanding music that way. And but I admired the way his life became more serious and more intellectual suddenly at the age of like 50 or 55, when he realized he ought to play before that audience, and this whole new dimension of his life started growing, and he needed new friends and new knowledge and new mentors and new instrumentation and new styles of thinking and feeling. And uh, it was really interesting. His life got bigger before my eyes and before his own eyes on that show, because he added this extra scale.